I absolutely think that's ridiculous because someone goes, "Oh, look at me, I'm the best." How are you the best? How do you compare apples and pears? Stop thinking about self-care. Let's start thinking healthcare.
Welcome, listeners, to another series of It's an Ugly Truth, sponsored by Robo Reception. So far, we've had a number of awesome guests, some welcomed by the profession, others not so. The saying, though, by Margaret Thatcher, if you just set out to be liked, you'd be prepared to compromise on anything at any time, and of course, therefore, you would achieve nothing. But today, our guest has spent years building a dental community, Tubules, much loved, or it appears to me, by everyone, the calm voice in the storm of many social media frenzies, a specialist in periodontics, a dentist, the CEO of Dentinal Tubules, an all-round lovely bloke. We'll be diving into his life, struggles, views, his impact on the profession. We'll find out whether building tubules has been plain sailing or a rocky road. Dr. Dru Shah, welcome to another series of It's an Ugly Truth.
Good day. Thank you for having me on the podcast, The Ugly Truth.
Well, I always like to start with a story. Look, I remember when I graduated, I mean, periodontics, gum gardening, it wasn't taken seriously, was it? I mean, it was ignored, and little did we know it would become the most litigious part of dentistry. You're a specialist periodontist. With that, I also see you do implants, and I just don't know how you had the heart to do so much postgraduate education. I'm very, very open about my mental health, which has been a little bit rocky over the years. Now I've found the bear inside me is asleep, but I had a nervous breakdown almost when I finished my finals. I was on 2 different types of tricyclic antidepressants. I really was in a place in my life. I thought, my God, I've sort of hit a dead end. But I suppose a dead end is a good place to turn around. So when I'm qualifying, I decided never again to do another bit of education. So I thought, well, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to dip my toe in. So I did a year or 2 years at the dental implants at Eastman. So no breakdown. I thought, bloody brilliant, I'm there. But then I actually started doing implants on my own. And I tell no word of a lie. When I look at people like you who've done so much postgraduate education, I just can't grasp it, because I did this 2-year course in implants, and I swear to God, after I placed an implant, I used to have to take a lie down. I used to have a half an hour sleep to get over the fact that I just placed a bloody implant. I was worried that the patient was going to bleed to death. I was going to cut the nerves in half. So doing what you do is awesome, my friend. So look, when I see people who are educated and who've done loads of educations, that's the story that keeps me focused. I think much respect. So do you have a story that you like to tell?
It's interesting. I was going to tell you a story, and I will tell you the story, but now that you've talked about education, I'm going to extrapolate that story. And I think most people have heard the core of my story. You know, I grew up in Kenya, and I came to the UK as an international student. And at that time, I was probably paying fees of around 20 grand a year. And this is fees without the living expenses as an international student. And obviously, you know, my parents had saved money. My parents had grafted through years. There was still my siblings and whatever family kids to pay for. Anyway, it so happened halfway through my education, something happened back home, and all our family savings got wiped out. The money got taken, or whatever you want to say. Anyway, I was in a position in my 3rd year where I had to make a choice, and my dad didn't know how he was going to get me through my dental education. He almost, it was almost a case of I might have to pack my bags and go back. Now, the real crux of that story is that I'm here standing telling you this story. So obviously, I didn't pack my bags, but those few years were absolute crazy, Grant. I was I was basically doing dental school during the day, and I was working through the evenings and nights. I would work in burger bars, shoe shops, flyer drops, chocolate shops, petrol stations, you name it, anything. And there were days when I couldn't afford a proper meal. There was a newsagent down the road. He would sell me 4 packs of Maryland double chocolate chip cookies, 4 packs for £1. And obviously, when you look at these packets, they didn't have English writing on them. They had some Middle Eastern writing, so I knew they were important, and that's why they were cheap. So they were probably loaded with sugar. Not the best diet. But I lived off Maryland double chocolate chip cookies. There were days when I genuinely didn't know how I was going to get through, but a little bit of biscuits in the day and a little bit at lunch, and sometimes on the tram back from work at midnight, I would scrump on them, get home, finish my assignments. Somehow I graduated. I'd borrowed money, I'd got scholarships, all sorts. But I talk about education. The big vision for me became nobody should go through what I went through.
Yeah.
Education should be a right and a privilege for everybody. And that's my education game. But it's not just dentistry. I know you've talked about postgrad. For many years, I did dentistry. Last few years, I've been studying about human behavior, psychology, and all of that. And currently, I'm writing a book and I'm doing presentations. I'm talking about growth, a different kind of education, the psychology and thinking about human growth and how you grow and what makes you grow and what's your drivers for growth, all of this sort of stuff. And that's come from tubules. So,
So I remember,
that's been
I remember when
interesting.
we met that you talked a lot about growth, human growth. Going back to the story about your struggles when you were in third year, and it's something I always like to ask guests. What lesson did that teach you? Whether it's you were skint, you didn't have any money. What lesson did you learn from that you've brought that through to you being an adult? What when you reflect on that, what lessons did you learn from the
I think
struggles that you
the
experienced?
strongest lesson I learned is that it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. And it's about how you can adapt, become flexible, and find a way through. There's always a way through. It's how much you want it and how resourceful you're going to get to get it. It's in a nutshell a very sort of summarized lesson, but that's how I've approached things all the time.
And have you? I mean, I don't know about you, but whenever I've gone through a struggle in my life,
Yeah.
or I look back on a struggle, I think, well, thank God that happened because this has come out of that struggle. Would you say
Yes.
tubules, your success was due to that struggle, or do you think that you look back and think, oh my goodness, I wish that hadn't happened?
I suppose, look, it was meant to happen. And we can't control things that happen or don't happen. And I'm glad it happened. It made me resilient. It made me strong. It made me tougher. And most importantly, I always talk about my sister. My sister was born in a wheelchair. She suffered a lot of discrimination and shutdown of opportunities. And my journey gave inspiration to her to push barriers. So it wasn't just for me. I'm glad it happened for others. And that's another lesson always. Think about others.
Has that, yeah, that is really very lovely. Has tubules been an easy build? Have you? To me, it looks like you're giving to the community, the charity. I mean, for me, I don't hide the fact that I'm a businessman. I expect to have possibly a legal threat every 6 months. But for you, I see you're growing a community, helping everybody. You've got a huge following. Have you had any resistance along the way building tubules?
I've had resistance every way along the way. I'm facing resistance now. Every level has its own devil. That's the way I would put it. And from tubules was born out of a drop of inspiration of dentistry. Having been through my journey, there were other steps where I struggled. I was in my MClean Dent training in my first year when I nearly quit dentistry. So I'd got into specialty training, I'd paid off my debts, all sorts. And I was in an institution that is really, world renowned. But the creative, out of box, rebel thinker I am, I struggled. I really struggled. So I nearly quit dentistry. And that's how Tubules was born, because I wanted to do a creative project. And I thought, why not do it in dentistry? At that point, there was always people going, we don't need another website in dentistry. To a point when we were trying to create the video libraries, people going, no, nobody will, online learning won't catch on. To building the community where people said there's too many study clubs around. At every step of the way, there's a challenge. We've built what I believe is the biggest video library in the world. It's just others don't want to admit the size of their library, but we've built a big video library.
Yeah.
But the big challenge now is the fact that people don't still engage as much. Motivation and learning in dentistry about dentistry is still limited. So we have a core community, but now it's about how do you drive and engage and motivate a wider group of people to engage in learning, in dental motivation, in loving what they do day by day. So challenges never go. I mean, one of those challenges is 2018. I've spoken about it. I nearly lost the company. We had a few days of cash left over. And I had reached a point where I was pretty much close to packing it in. And I
How did
remember
that
sitting
happen?
in
What happened there? What was it
we
that
we raised some funding. Um, and what happens is when you raise funding, you think that you own the world. And we obviously had debts, we carried everything else, but we probably expanded a bit quicker. My passion took over, but also the opportunity stood there. We launched the Congress that year. We launched in India that year. I built the foundation that year. We rebuilt the new website. We supercharged our content development at that time. All of that bit, the new GDC regulations were coming. We're preparing for that. We basically chucked everything to take this thing to the next level. And um, yeah, cash flow challenges turned up. And when you've spent 20 years through struggles and journeys, losing a company isn't losing a company. Losing a project, I never call Tubules a business or a company. I call it a project for greater human good. But losing the project means you lose you're scared of losing your identity. You're scared of losing who you are. Remember, I wore this badge on my sleeve all day long. And I remember sitting in my kitchen one evening about 11 o'clock at night, having a coffee. And, we'd been begging our investors for a bit more cash. That wasn't coming through. We tried to fundraise all sorts. And you get this little voice in your head, and I was angry as hell. Why can't these people see the vision? Why can't they see what we're
yeah,
achieving? Why can't they
yeah.
do this? Anyway, you go through a phase where you're really angry, and then you breathe a sigh of relief and you let it all out. And I said, you know what? Sod it. If it's gone, it's gone. And a little voice in my head said, and you'd do this all over again. The sacrifices, the fact that you couldn't go see your sister, the fact that when she passed away, you had 5 days before getting back to work, so you couldn't mourn about it. The fact that you used to sleep 2 hours a night, working 7 days a week to build this, you'd do it again. And I said, yes, I would. And this little voice goes, why? You've nearly lost it. That's when I recognized something. It's because I loved what I did. And this thing where I said my son, at that point, he was 8 months, he's sleeping up in the bedroom. And whether they take tubules away from me or not, I will still be me. I will still do what I do. And my son upstairs will still think I'm a superhero because I work with honesty and integrity. What that did for me was galvanize me. I mean, there was a big journey after that because I realized tubules was a passion, but then I tried to discover what that passion was. All of this growth, personal growth came with it. But yeah, so there's been hardships on tubules all the way. All the
Has
way.
have you
There's
had
all
many
sorts.
competitors trying to delay this journey of yours? Have you had are there any competitors to tubules?
That's a good question. It depends on how the users view it. Those who view tubules as a growth organization really immerse themselves. They don't see anything like it because they see it as not just a community. They see it as a resource, a community, something that helps them grow. They
Yeah.
see it as a bigger picture. The biggest challenge for us has been that people sometimes view tubules as simple CPD resource, and then they try and compare us to, cheaper resources out there, 40 quid a year. I mean, we don't even match that. 40 quid a year for some slides versus, you've seen our production crew. I don't believe in delivering education using cheap stuff. I believe in delivering education, doing proper production so that whoever's learning gets the best experience. So I suppose people try and compare us based on what they say. But
Yeah.
I always felt that, tubules has a unique place. And the more we've done it, the better clarity you get around your purpose, your vision, your mission, all of that. The more you dig in, you understand things better.
And learning, yeah,
And
and you do there is a very heavy definition or defined learning experience with tubules. So what are you personally learning right now? What's the thing that you're really getting your head around? I know you touched upon it earlier. What are you learning just
yeah,
now, so our listeners can get a little bit about you, about Dhru, the guy behind tubules? What are you learning personally, whether it's
you know what?
dental or
I'm
otherwise?
learning about growth. What we are in, and you'll understand this, Grant, is we're in a rapidly changing world. What we know today is history tomorrow. And what we knew yesterday is irrelevant today. We are in a fast changing world. We're in a world where anything can happen. A competitor can set up down the road tomorrow. a new technology could come in that could wipe out your entire setup.
Yeah.
Everything can happen. And what I've been learning is the process of growth, the psychology of growth, and how you approach this. Because learning itself, education itself, has no real value. The real value of education and learning comes in helping you build skills, abilities, talent, whatever, to help you grow to the next level, to help you negotiate these challenges of a fast changing world. And that's what I've been doing. So I've been doing some talks on that. And what I've realized myself is that I've been following a certain kind of growth for the last 20 years. That's why Tubules has struggled as much as it has grown. We all have this. I call it static growth, and you'll have had this in education. You alluded to it up to a level. You sit down, you're given an exam, you have to get the right answer. Nobody asks you the question, is this the right problem in the first place? Nobody teaches you, is this the right problem? You're assuming this is the right problem. I've got to follow a set method, and I've got to get the answer which they want. That's how I'm going to pass. And if you pass, then there's an external endorsement. Someone from outside gives you a certificate, gives you something, right? So number one, you don't question the problem. Number two, you don't even think about the problem, you think about the solution. Number three, you follow a designated path for that solution. Sorry for a phrase, but it says basically monkey say, monkey do kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And number four, when you get the result, you're not happy inside. You want someone outside to give you the validation. That's the kind of growth pathway we've followed for years. I was a product of that. It's only the last few years I've realized that's not how you do things in a rapid changing world. Because the world is changing so fast, you can't always find a solution. You've got to understand the problem. You can't always have a set path. You've got to make your own path. You've got to power up your own solution. And you can't wait for someone outside to validate you. You've got to be happy and internally powered for what you're doing. That's a different growth process. So that's what I've been working upon. And I'll be releasing a lot of this on the new Tubules.
So you're advising people and showing them how this growth works and how they can develop themselves.
That's right.
What's the best piece of advice that you have ever received from someone? What was it, and who did it? You sit there and think, blimey, that was just golden, and you've taken that to your success.
There's a guy called Anup Soni. Anup Soni was a dentist, a really, really enthusiastic dentist. He taught me in the final year in dental school. And he said something that always stuck with me. But I think that message had been reiterated through the years, through various teachers who inspired me. But he kind of galvanized it. He said, Drew, don't worry about the money. Do the right thing. Do it well. The results, the outcome, the money will follow.
Yeah.
And, to me, that's been gold. I've tried to do the right thing to the highest level ever since.
I know. I say to my kids, if you're good at your job and you're good at it and you enjoy it, the money will be there. But we are living in a world where people are wanting money, and I hear my children's friends and cousins, and that's what they want in life. And I don't know whether it's sad. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. But as long as they do things right, the money will be there. And I think that's similar to what you're saying. I mean, and I do want to be proud of the dentists that are coming up behind us. I think that there is a little bit which we can touch on a little bit later, where dentistry is going. But what have you done personally, apart from Tubules, that you're incredibly proud of? What are you really, really proud of? And not Tubules, because we know that that's something to be awesomely proud of. I just want to know a bit more about you, what you're proud of personally.
I think, look, that through my journey, there's various things I've been proud from. On a personal note, that I had a very strong bond with my sister. And having been that rock in her life and having built that strong bond that inspired her from a place where, she was discriminated against, to a point where someone on a wheelchair became a psychologist, qualified in law, became a speaker, wrote a book. I think that to me was really proud to be able to do that. My biggest pride lies in the fact that in this same way, I tend to and like to impact people's lives in a positive direction. In and out of Tubules, that's what I do. That's one of my pride. The other side of my pride has always been the fact that I have risen up to challenges myself. And this is, when you talk about challenges, I'm proud to have climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya, two big climbs, because the fact that I love it when someone says this is hard. I go, let's go then. Let's do it. Push it. And it's the biggest part of my journey. Give me a challenge. I thrive on those. Uh, pride is tubulites. I
Yeah,
have
of
to say tubulites because so
course you
many
do.
come in disenchanted and they come out saying, I'm loving my life. I'm loving dentistry. You've given me an impetus. There's no sense of bigger pride than watching people grow,
Yeah,
watching
and
people
you being a part of that growth.
being the enabler, creating the ecosystem which they can tip into. And someone goes, using this, I'm succeeding. There's no better happiness than watching others succeed.
You know, you being able to have that effect on people must create a massive energy, and I'm very much into the energy of people, and I think if you do good things you'll get something in return, albeit you don't expect that good thing in return, but that energy is quite exhausting. And I've never asked a guest yet, and I'd really like to, what does your typical day look like? Now, Tim Wary, a very good friend of mine, a dentist down here, you know him. He's part of the tubule circle. He just says you are just constantly on the go. So I thought I've got to save that question for you. I need you to walk me through a typical day, when you go to bed at night, whatever.
I haven't got a day, typical day. My days vary. My days vary massively. And I alluded to the fact that I used to sleep 2 hours a night, and I did this for about 7, 8, 9 years. 2 hours a night. I used to go to bed at 2 a.m. and be up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Um, as I get older, my sleep patterns are improving. I'm now getting 4 hours a night. The trouble is, sometimes I'll sleep at 10 p.m. and wake up at 2. Sometimes I'll sleep at 2 and wake up at 6. It is me. My sleep patterns are all over. So what's my typical day? I suppose the main consistent parts of my day are every morning. If I've woken up very early, I will be in the office. I'll be writing, I'll be reading, I'll be answering emails, I'll be doing things like that. The most consistent part is probably between 6 and 8 when I wake my son up, get him ready, have breakfast with him, spend time with him. And dinner time, 7, 8 in the evening, when I'm sort of with my son again, having dinner or having done homework with him or playing some football or cricket with him. Those parts are probably the pillars of my day.
Yeah.
In between, I could be doing clinical work. I could be somewhere filming for content for tubules. I could be at home, and if I'm at home, I may be doing online meetings. I may be responding to queries. I may be editing videos. I may be planning ahead and strategizing. There are certain days when I feel the energy is right. I stop doing everything and I walk for 2, 3 hours and just process things in my head. So I'm always thinking of ways of what we drive, what we do, things like that. Some days I'll have the team over, the tubules team, and we'll be in my garage, which is the tubules warehouse, sorting out kits. Other days I'll be sitting with my team and we'll be discussing things. I believe in empowering the team, so I'm always, constantly engaging them, challenging them, making them think what's the next learning factor. So I'll be doing that. Other times I'll be reading papers, and then I read a lot of psychology papers. I'll be sending these to people. So my day is as varied as Britain's weather and as unpredictable as Britain's weather. And that's how I work. Tuesdays, perhaps the consistency of Tuesdays is their clinical days, completely 95, and some Thursdays now. Now I'm at 6 days a month with clinical practice.
Hmm.
Very focused on perio, which, as you know, dentistry, when you're in the surgery, is just training. It's
Yes.
emotionally, mentally, physically training.
I
So
mean,
yeah,
do with your tubules and all the your development and you're empowering people that you're talking about. I mean, it is awesome. But how do you feel with the people who you're empowering, the new people coming along? How do you feel? I know we touched on it earlier. How do you feel dentistry is going? And I do see you making comments online, and you are always in the middle, and you don't, which you always have a voice of reason in your. And I saw you the other day. It was about Russia and Ukraine. How do you feel that where dentistry's heading? Do you think it's going in the right direction, the wrong direction? What's good and what's bad? Where are we going with dentistry now, with the new people graduating from the university?
difficult, isn't it? Very difficult to do it because, Grant, when you and I graduated, we had structure. We could do, we could graduate, do VT or DF or whatever it was called. You could then decide to be an associate in biopractice or go into hospital and follow a pathway. Young dentists are now surrounded by, number one, an NHS that, let's be honest, the NHS funding isn't going to improve, whoever, whatever anywhere says, so they're in a very constrained system. We're surrounded by a population whose disposable income is reducing. And dentistry, either will be a discretionary spend for some, or provided how we set it up, it could become an essential spend. We're surrounded by a system where I think, technology is coming in, whether it's, Invisalign's an example of the last 10 years of orthodontic technology. Where do I see dentistry going? The opportunities in dentistry are going to be many, plenty, and the challenges are going to be plenty. Anybody can easily set up a squat, or anybody can tap into a corporate and grow. Corporates are going to grow as well, right? And they'll give you the
You think
opportunities
that,
to
do you? You
grow.
think corporate market is still going to grow and get stronger?
Yes, because I think that the younger dentists don't want to really own a practice. Very few want to. Most of them want to work part-time, want to have work-life balance. And they genuinely want to work for somebody else. And business ownership is, it's a 24/7 job. So you got to have the nettle for it. On that basis, I think dentistry is headed in a place where there will be more private work than NHS, and everybody has the opportunity to set up their unique setup. They could set up as a healthcare dentist who provides day-to-day dentistry that the NHS can't on a private level, and do it at the value they set. Or, as many people are seeing dentistry, they're seeing it as a lifestyle business. Unfortunately, social media is influencing them to think that dentistry as a lifestyle business is where you should set up, and so many practices are trying to set up around that. So yeah, we're opening up into a bigger market.
Do you think what do you think actually people get wrong in our field or your field then? You touched a little bit on that then. What do you think we get wrong? I mean, I know we see on Instagram, you've got the Instagram dentist, you've got the good looking dentists, they don't wear socks and their trousers aren't quite long enough, and they're all, do you know what, and they're all such lovely people, and I really support it. I know that some people don't, but where do you think we get it wrong with regard to how the public view dentists and how dentistry is progressing in that direction?
We're a healthcare profession. And if you ever go to the word care, care, the definition of care is welfare of something or someone else. And healthcare is the welfare of somebody else's health. And what we're doing is we're too busy thinking about self-care and our welfare. We've shifted the balance. There's got to be a balance. Don't forget, there is self-care and you've got to be sustainable. The balance has moved. Because the balance has shifted, then the public is seeing us as self-serving. So the trust breaks down. That's the first thing. And I think the second thing is fear of change. Fear of change is basically people want to try and stay with the good old system. NHS has got to fund me more kind of system or whatever. But they want to not change. They want bigger money doing the same things in the same way. It's not going to happen. Now, this is the ugly truth. So I am going to say the ugly truth and be controversial, because I know you like that sometimes.
Love it.
But for example, there was a post on one of the social media forums where this GP, went on a tirade saying dentists are scammers, and my person went in and 20 quid they were charged for this 20-minute appointment. And I sat there and thought, everyone's cursing this guy, but there's a message in here that this guy doesn't understand dentistry. Come on, stop cursing him, turn back and self-reflect as a profession, because this guy doesn't understand why we do things and what we do. The biggest challenge in dentistry is you want to do a 20-minute hygiene appointment, you're never going to be able to explain to a patient why that appointment exists. My personal consults are an hour long. And in that hour is when somebody goes, oh my God, why has no one told me to do this? And by the way, in that hour, I don't tell them to brush their teeth. They pay another 250 quid to come for another hour when I actually teach them cleaning their teeth. And they go, this is the best money I've ever spent, because you've explained to me why things happen and why I need to spend money. We don't do this enough. We do not deliver value enough, but we're too quick to use these patients to go and win awards. I absolutely think that's ridiculous, because someone goes, oh, look at me, I'm the best. How are you the best? How do you compare apples and pears? Stop thinking about self-care. Let's start thinking healthcare. because any business that wins the trust of its wider customers, the pie gets bigger, everybody wins, and the public trust us. And that's when dentistry becomes less of discretionary and more of a priority. We need to change the shift and the focus massively.
So you've mentioned awards there. So how do
Yeah.
you what's your thoughts and opinions about the dental awards?
What's an award? It's a prize, right?
Mm.
Usain Bolt runs the 100 meters and he can say, I am the fastest man in the world because all 8 people started from the same starting point. They had the same track, they had the same conditions, and it was who finished the finish line first, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can say it. But when you have different conditions for different people, when you have different environments, when each patient is a unique entity, when each person delivering that care is unique, you can't compare apples and pears and say you're the best person in X, Y, and Z, because is the best person in X, Y, and Z the person who delivers the best treatment, or the real dentist down the road who's delivering maybe not the best treatments, but he's changing patient perceptions, confidence, and value? You can't compare apples and pears.
No.
And the other thing about awards is the more you glamorize awards, the more you start thinking about yourself and less about the patient. The patient becomes a tool in the pathway to winning something, while the patient should be the end in itself. If your patient wins, full stop. So the culture around this entire awards thing, and I've said it often, I say it, this is the ugly truth, I'll say my truth. The culture around awards is the same external validation I told you before. People get addicted to it. The drug dealer in Colombia deals in the drugs of whatever it is. Well, awards are the drug of dopamine. And whoever's dealing in awards is dealing in the drug of dopamine. Be very careful with that, because the banking industry has shown this. It can lead to damage. A lot of things have shown that industries that rely on huge external validation will eventually end up car crashing.
That's really interesting, and I can see you've got a huge amount of passion about that. If a couple of listeners or a few listeners may say, well, it's just like the Oscars. It's just a bit of glitzy fun, and I've been to the events. I've never won an award in my life. Well, I did from the IAS once, but I don't try and go for the awards. I've been to the evening, but wouldn't a couple of listeners may say to your argument, it's just a bit of fun. It's like the Oscars. It's a bit glitzy. It's a night out to meet people. When there are definitely a huge amount of dentists that go, they're out of line. They shouldn't be around. They're unhealthy, like you're saying. But could there be an award system that is right, that's just, that's appropriate?
You've split two things. Let's talk about the glitzy part, right? The glitzy part can be done. What's his name? Jazz Gill and Muniz, and they set up the Bollywood Bowl the other day in aid for a charity. That's a glitzy way to bring people together. Yeah. My view has always been we're serving the people, the population. If I was a business person, I'm serving a customer, whatever it is, right? And I always say, use the Amazon method. What if that customer walked into this event? What would they think, right? When we do the Tubules Congress, I'm pretty comfortable. Any patient can walk into that event and go, these are dentists who are bettering themselves for the betterment of healthcare. And then they're having a glitzy party, which is in aid of the foundation. They're always thinking the other way. While a patient who walks into an awards goes, look at these nutters. I can't get a dentist, and they're busy telling themselves how good they are. That doesn't make sense. No. That's the first thing. Now they got student awards from what I gather. Come on, be serious. Now, but the other side of the coin is, how do you make awards fair? A very strict criteria, very strict. You've got to create the Usain Bolt level, same starting point, same ending point, because even specialist endodontists and periodontists cannot really define what is success in treatment. And in awards, we are basically trying to give people awards for what we think is successful. I mean, let's get down to a real powerful level. You want to bring people, you can bring people together in every way. It's what purpose and what reason people are coming together for. Are they coming together for a combined purpose of advancing the cause of healthcare? Or are they coming for a combined purpose of saying, let's see who advances better than the other person? All right? Is it competition or is it collaboration? And that's the way I think about things. Maybe I'm just an outlier. Who knows?
So, which leads me on nicely to another question I like to ask my guests. What's something that you think that people get wrong about you?
People think I'm successful. And
You are. You're incredibly
no, I
successful.
define success. And
Someone
this
who's
is
got to, that's a really good question. I don't look, I never exploit my wealth. I don't tell anybody about it. I think success is, if you were going to die tomorrow, you would go, I've done my best and I'm doing well and I don't regret anything. That's success to me, to be honest. And someone asked me that the other day, and I think if and I do feel like that. I've got a lovely family. I've got a loving wife. My children are doing well. If I did die tomorrow, I wouldn't have regret. I'd have regret missing the future, but I don't have any
yes.
regret in the past. I think that's success to me.
That's a very good definition, and it's a nice place to be. Now, for me, people think but I don't see success. I see success and failure as the same side of a coin, different sides of the same coin. A lot of people think I'm successful. Well, I am just someone who says I'm neither successful nor failing. I'm just, trotting my way day to day, making the
What
difference.
success look like to you
Um,
then? When will you go, I have achieved a success in my own right? Or what do you look as success then?
I don't see success. I don't see it as an endpoint.
Oh, I see. I
I
understand.
suppose to me, and this is again going back to this whole thing, growth. Success is an endpoint where then you look for a certificate. To me, I'm thriving. There's no doubt. Thriving is where I'm doing what I love. I wake up every morning, a spark in my, in my step, in my doing something meaningful for somebody else, and I have clarity of where I want to go. And sometimes I will win, sometimes I will lose, sometimes I'll have a great day, and sometimes I'll have a shit day. Every single month, I'm still, there are months when there'll be more months than the end of the money. All of that goes day to day. To me, that doesn't change. It's the fact that can I wake up every morning saying, am I still living the dream of what I love? Now, if that's success, fine. But maybe on that respect, people think I'm successful. But I think a lot of people misconcept that I'm probably, swimming in a bed of millions or something like that. To me, that isn't success. Success is when you enjoy what you do and you don't care about whether someone outside there says you're brilliant or not. You don't need to show off to the world how good you are or anything like that. You're just happy within yourself, doing something meaningful.
And you do have such strong beliefs, and I think that's very respectful. Is there any beliefs that you did have but you
Yeah.
don't now? Whether it's life, whether it's learning, have you changed a belief as you've gone on
Uh,
your path, on your journey?
Lots of them. I mean, one big belief I used to have was this notion around success. Because I grew up in a society of status, of achievement. So when I came to do dentistry, for me, success was achieving things, achievement after achievement, getting a graduation, and getting the next exam grade, getting the MJDF. All of those things was success. Now, one of my beliefs is if I wake up every morning with working bodies and feet and really happy what I'm doing, that's a better version of success. I don't need to prove to anybody. The other belief I had was education always has to be formal. And like you said, it becomes stressful. But actually, the truth is, learning and education happens every day, formally and informally. You said you don't like education, yet building rubber reception, building your marketing engine, you've been learning. You have been learning. Writing your
True.
book, you've been
Academic.
learning.
Do you know what? The
Yes,
academic. I think it's the academic side of things that I struggled
that's
with. I,
right.
I did struggle very, but you're right. You do learn as you go along.
So I think people have to recognize that learning isn't just formal academics. You don't
Yeah.
need qualifications.
Yeah.
And the third belief for me has become the consistency of learning. And when I say consistency, think about it. We all go to the gym. We all have a personal trainer, whatever it is, right? And we physical health, we're constantly there. But how much are we doing for our brain gym, our brain health every day? And that's the gym where 6 o'clock in the morning you wake up and you read, you learn. You don't have to do formal academic stuff. You can do anything. But how much are you powering your brain? Because physical health and mental health are both equally important. And in the same way, when you do physical health, physical exercises, you then take a break. Do you take a break from your mental strain and mental exercises and do something that's a bit more relaxing? People have got to think about this. And these are some of the beliefs that have changed for me. Having had a young boy who's now 7 changed the world for me.
They
Um,
do that.
and no one can describe that. And that's a powerful belief change, a massively powerful belief change. I don't know how I would describe that, to be honest with you, but you'll be able to know that.
It's beautiful, isn't it? I mean, so with these belief changes and all that sort of stuff, and all the what how you view success, is there a time in your life where you have completely, in your eyes, I'm sure it's not in everybody else's eyes,
Yeah.
screwed up? And what was it, and how did you get over it?
Well, I suppose one of my biggest screw ups was the story I was telling you earlier about nearly losing tubules and going too far in and getting excited. Um, how did I get out of it? I really had to dig deep. I work hard. Thank you to the GDC for introducing the new CPD regulations that helped me, get through that and deliver for the profession. The other time I've screwed up, and I'm probably still learning from it, to be honest, Grant, is understanding that a passion is not the same as a business. And that's a big difference. Now,
That's
all this
interesting.
time, you've been hearing my passion. You've been hearing what I absolutely love. You've been hearing how I want to impact and change the world. But a business is totally different.
Yeah.
A business is solving a meaningful problem. And that may or may not be a passion. I mean, if your passion and your business combine, that's the ultimate golden ticket. If you find that, can build a business around your passion, that's brilliant. But a business is really identifying your potential audience's biggest pain points and need. And and actually, there's even that's not enough, right? Because somebody could have a pain point, but they'll do nothing about it. They'll do nothing. I mean, 90% of the dental population go, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I am, worried, I am frustrated. Yet none of them will know that tubules is solving those problems. And even if they knew it, they don't want to do anything about it. So actually, the journey of a business is very different from the journey of passion. Passion helps you build a business, but I'm learning that at the moment and understanding the distinction between the two.
So that, that's so funny you should say that. That my next question was going to actually be, what are you learning just now? I know we've pressed on it, and this I'd like to give an opportunity so you can really tell the listeners what tubules is, what you're going to be offering. So it's a plug time. I really want to know about tubules. I don't know enough about it, costs, whatever. So where are we going with tubules? What are you doing, and what exciting things are coming ahead?
So the world has changed, massively changed, right? When we started Tubule 16 years ago, the problem was the lack of information. Now there's too much information. In fact, the challenge is curation of information. When we started 16 years ago, we discussed there was a lot of structure. Now there's no structure in the world. Where is tubules going? A lot of people have seen tubules as this CPD platform, and CPD remains. But I want to evolve it. Instead of saying, I want people to go, don't just CPD and survive. I want people to grow and thrive. And that's where we want to go. We want to dedicate our focus, our energy on people who truly want to grow and thrive, whether it's in dentistry or outside of dentistry, whichever way you want to grow and thrive. And for that, we've kind of creating this system that really helps you identify your challenge. And then it uses AI to say, okay, these are your challenges. These are your learning goals that will help you set up. These are the kind of learning goals you want. This is your mental gym. And then it points to the next stage. Here's the courses you should go on. And not
Wow.
just the tubules online courses. It says, here's the tubules online courses. Here's the non-tubules face-to-face courses. And here's the links to book them in. And once you've done that learning, it then comes and tells you, you've done the learning. Now tell us what you've learned and build your portfolio. And you are constantly now in this cycle of going, what's my next challenge? How can I grow? What's my next challenge? How can I grow? And our job in building content and courses is a content side is going to be building wider than tubules content. So wider than dentistry content. And the courses side, we are going to deliver less courses, and we're going to partner with people who deliver these courses. Empower people, bring people together. Tubules has always been about collaboration. I want to see a world where people wake up every morning loving what they do, with a spring in their step, inspired to make a difference to the world. I want people to go inspire, grow, thrive. That's the journey I want to take in the next few years personally, and hopefully with tubules as well.
Do you know what? I think you have been. I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you today. And it hasn't disappointed me at all with meeting and getting to know all the things and all your passion. And I knew you were like that. And when you are you expose yourself online, the things you say, and you're exactly who you are, and what you say what you mean what you say, and that's quite admirable in this world. And listen, I've got a massive thank you for coming on this morning, and thank you for sort of being very candid and very honest. And
Thank you.
you're all round good bloke. And like I said, thank you for coming on. It's an ugly truth.